So hello, nice to see so many of you here today. Since I guess you have rested your arms from the morning exercise, we're going to do that again. So we ask all of you to raise all your hands, or one hand is enough, and keep it up. And if you work in a software company or project with more than 100 developers or testers, keep your hands up. Okay. If you work in a project or company with more than 500, still quite a lot. That's great. And if you feel that you struggle with speed and efficiency in your software development flow, and it's okay to raise hands if you put them down. Okay, so that's good. We even got a few more hands up again. Great, you can take down your hands. It proves that at least you're in the right room, because we're going to talk about the challenges and what we have done. Not necessarily solving everything, but at least working with the challenges. And as you know, we come from a old and large software and hardware company, actually. So let's get started, and Kristofer will tell us some context. I'm Kristofer, this is Conny. We're from Ericsson. We are from the mobile part of Ericsson. We're making these things that connect your phone. Without us, you probably wouldn't have a connection today. So mobile networks is what we're doing. Ericsson is quite an old company, 1876, started out repairing phones, building some of the first phones ever. We're still here. We're a world leader in mobile networks. So during that time, we've had to reinvent many times, from cables and stuff, and now into a lot of wireless things. To give a bit of a context, and that's also why we're asking about the size and so we're working with a lot of things at large scale. So a lot of people, a large global market. But we also work a lot on custom hardware and many different platforms to run things on. And our products need to, they're highly regulated. A lot of almost extreme requirements. You are always supposed to be able to call an ambulance if you need it. It's not supposed to go down. And we have a lot of software on these systems and many platforms. But it's, for us, we always come back to this, it's not only software. In the end, there's always an antenna. We need to relate to physical world. So that's a bit of the context where we will tell a story today. I'm Kristofer. I've been a developer in both telecom and automotive, architect, but more and more I've come into development environment, CI/CD, release, supporting developers, making sure they can actually bring a product to customer. Yes, I'm Conny then. I worked in as well as a developer. I started in the 3G era, and I worked through 3G, 4G, 5G, and 6G, and now I'm mostly focusing on CI and CD and tools and building systems to support large development organizations. So that's us. Starting with our story here today, the learnings we will talk about. We had reason to change. So with our title here is efficiency and speed. We had somewhere 15 years ago, we ended up we were developing 4G. We ended up in that we were not fast enough. So we came from a situation where we had every new generation of mobile networks, 2G, 3G, 4G, was developed as a separate product in its own context. Delivery of software maybe once a year. That started to change. So product changed. We now wanted to have many G's generations on the same platform. We had expectations to deliver much more frequently. So I still remember that our release organization practice said, we give up. We can't handle this anymore. They used to collect the information in mails and documents and try to put it together. It didn't work. So we needed to reinvent. We
needed to do that in this scale I talked about. Hundreds, thousands of people, many mobile generations and on the same platform, and deliver much more frequently. Starting out then with what the challenges we had or we ran into.
Yeah, we will highlight a few of them. Of course, there are a lot more, but a few of them. And as Kristofer said, there is always an antenna and there's always a lot of hardware. Even though we are moving to cloud-based products and we're kind of moving with the IT industry a lot more today than what we did in the past. But there is still base stations which talk to your cell phone. And they're usually on the roof of buildings, in basements, in the subway, out in the forest somewhere, out on a mountain somewhere. So they're usually very expensive to go there and replace this hardware. So the hardware need to live for a long time, maybe like 7-8 years, which is a long time for an IT-like system. And of course, we need to support this hardware with software during that lifetime. And as you know, it might mean that we even introduce a new G during the lifetime of this hardware, and that usually needs to fit on old hardware. So we need to test a lot in-house on old hardware, new hardware that we continuously develop, but we also need a lot of test equipment, since this is a real-time or at least near real-time system for signal processing and a lot of things that we need to verify. We even build radio chambers, like big rooms, several meters square, that are isolated for radio waves, and we build numbers of them just to test our radio spectrums and test our signals and how the phone connects to the network. So all of this is very costly. It takes a lot of floor space, and of course it takes a lot of time and effort to manage and keep it running. So that was one of the biggest challenges. Another challenge is very much connected to the first talk of the day, that over time software systems tend to get we introduce a lot of dependencies. We have software that was written 15 years ago that are still running. Like we still have, as you know, with your phone today, you can still do GSM or 2G, which was introduced 35 years ago, and it still runs. And so we have a software or code base that can do 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, all in the same code base. And it needs to evolve. And over time, of course, we have collected a lot of technical debt, a lot of dependencies that are hard to get out of. And with, let's say, thousands of developers working on this system continuously across the globe, it is a pain to get time to merge your commits or to make sure that your commits doesn't break anything else that you didn't think of. So that's a different challenge that we had. And then if we take the third area that we will talk about is what we just heard from Atlassian, this with information. If you have a large organization with many developers and a large system that you are developing and need to deliver, of course, information is very, very important to make the organization move at a decent pace. And this has proven to be a lot harder than we think. So we'll talk a bit about that as well.
It feels like we are connecting to the other speakers here. So we were too slow. We realized that there were some main areas where we really needed to do something. We now call this a playbook. Of course, we didn't just start by writing all the solutions down from the start. We didn't do everything right from the start. This has been more of a journey, and here we've summarized it. Also, these things that we presented here, they're not like you can solve them in isolation many times. They are connected. But this ends up, and what we're trying to describe here is like the choices we made that made sense and then continued to make sense and that we then still believe in. Of course, we might we're still learning, still getting new challenges, but we'll try to show what we have done and what we think works for us.
So now we have the happy people. So what we have worked with, and when it comes to hardware and equipment, of course we have physical equipment and virtualized test tools or even virtualized products. But we have to manage a large pool of these resources, we addressed it in two different ways. One, when we work with like legacy verification, keeping things working as we develop new things, or we change the system, or we fix things, it's important to test legacy continuously, every day, the whole year. And for legacy and compliance type of testing, we like to focus on a limited set of configurations that are representative of a large part of all our customer install base. Not everything, we don't test all corner cases, but it represents a large part of what we have out in the world. And then by standardizing and keeping it to a smaller set, we can pool things and we can run it 24/7 with a very high utilization to get as much test per invested Swedish crown. But then we have different use cases where we develop features, or we troubleshoot a problem somewhere, or we do exploratory testing. We want to try corner cases. And for that, we usually need configurations that are tailored to that feature that we develop, or tailored to that type of problem area we're trying to troubleshoot. So then we don't want to work with these more, let's say, static and high-performing types of configurations. We want to build them on demand with like a lab as a service and software configured telecom networks, basically, that we can spin up quickly and easily and have them short-lived for a certain purpose and then tear them down. And the challenge is combining that then with these large capacity pools. But that's our kind of two different scenarios, and one will not replace the other. And that's kind of important to keep that. You have two types of environments. Camille talked about, we have a lot of legacy and dependencies, and we worked very, very hard, and we work continuously with decoupling the code base, because we want to make sure that we don't have too many developers on each repo or on each code branch, because that's a learning that you very quickly end up with a lot of developers that want to commit changes, features, fixes, improvements, but they are short on time, or the time window to get your time slot to merge things gets very short if you are many people on the same code branches. So that's one thing, that we want to split the code base up. A second thing that we work a lot with continuously is this system decoupling. Since a telecom system is a large system, we work a lot with kind of managing interfaces between components. How can we give them independent life cycles? Because that is also valuable when it comes to testing these components. We can define functional requirements on a component. We can define characteristics requirements on a component. And we can test them to some degree, not completely, because we still sell a system. So we need to test them to some degree on a cheaper, faster, more easily accessible environment. So those are two of many aspects of decoupling that we worked a lot with. And then when it comes to information system, we heard that, and apparently there's a lot of vendors that sell different types of information system. And we have maybe arrived at the conclusion currently, that might change over time, but it's not necessarily most important to have the one and only information system. It's important that people know where to go for what information. So we have a number of different information systems, but for different purposes. And it's very obvious where you should turn. And it's also very important that data in those different systems are coherent. So you can compare that what you see from over here relates to what you see like when you do a release. Your commit is kind of consistent with what's in the product when you release it, for example. So that's our learnings. And the last thing that we want to throw in a little bit, again, we heard on the Atlassian talk just before that a tool itself will not save you. You need a lot of culture on top of it. And I think that was very, very timely that we have Atlassian just before us, because a strong development culture and leadership that we just heard is more important, I would argue, than the tool you use. The tools are enablers. It will make you more efficient, but it won't solve the problem for you. And that's something we have learned. And we like to maybe highlight two things. This is also an area with many different aspects, but especially embrace change. Like we heard Camille talk about, CI and CD and DevOps is an ever-changing story. This does not, you don't reach a certain goal and you're done and you can go home. This is a thing that changes every day, every year, continuously. And you have to follow the products that you are supporting, more or less. And they always change and they always get better. And the second thing is that celebrate your successes. Don't forget that you actually do a lot of good things, because it's so easy to forget about CI and CD and your pipelines and your information systems when everything works. But as soon as something breaks, as soon as you push something bad, then you will be on the top of everybody's speed dial for some time. Then you will be the most unpopular guy in the organization. So celebrate when people don't call you, because then you've done something good. Don't forget that.
Going back to this with speed, efficiency, can you be a large company, a lot of people, and still be fast, or do you have to be really small? Our conclusion is that, yeah, we can be big and fast, but also, especially when reflecting on this, what we should actually say, that we also end up in that you probably need to define what speed is for you in your context. So some of our reflections here then, one type of speed could be then deployment frequency. Dora, like, can you do things very frequently, ship stuff? And yes, we did. We had somewhere around yearly releases. Now we can bring out software every day. That we think is a high speed for us. But it's one aspect. Then that might not really show a customer value. So we can look into other things too.
Deploy frequency gives you time slots to fill with value. And value is many times features that you can monetize in some way. It could be capacity in a system for us. How many cell phones can you handle? How many continuous 8K video streams can you stream to your phone or whatever at the same time? So speed could also be how much customer value, and that's also kind of noticeable value, because if you look at your phone today, for example, you get pushed out a lot of changes and you're asked to reboot it every week or so, or update apps. But at the end of the day, how much value do you actually get out of that? Of course, you get a lot of security updates, so we shouldn't forget about that. But how happy are you after each reboot? Do you really see a big game changer? So that's kind of it's important to ship often, but you also need to fill it with value. And the third thing, I think we heard it from Camille again, it was really good, all these talks before, this course correction, that sometimes you have to adapt to a changing reality, changing customer needs, that from idea to deployable value, that's also a notion of speed. How fast can you change and adapt to change needs?
Summarizing our playbook, what we did during this journey, we're not done and never will be, but pooling, some kind of standardizing, making sure you can get things, but that they are available in the pool when test resources. Trying to find ways to decouple people, so you don't have to wait for others. Actually bringing information or this, making sure you know where to find the right information. And adding some culture part, especially for us that then are, as Conny said, when we usually don't notice when things work really well. That has brought us speed and in some different dimensions, and some we still need to work more on. Have not mentioned that much about tools, and there's a lot about, we have done some reflections here. We've also gone into this, is there one tool to solve it all? We've never really managed to do it, but we definitely see tools as important enablers to be able to, for example, do these kind of things. But they bring a capability, and it might not be that it's only, this also looping back, not one silver bullet, but you need good things that give you good capabilities. And of course, you can't just use anything. You still need to balance with competence and a budget to actually run stuff. And then we're getting to the end of this. I would be very happy to have some time for discussion now if someone wants it, or if you grab us by the coffee or challenge us or say that you would like to discuss and learn more from us. So thank you.